So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to tonight's talk about food, diet, and related topics.
Should we eat the chocolate first?
Yeah.
Yes.
Chocolateholics. Chocolateholics.
So yeah, we should.
I don't care, as you like. Dig in. No, thank you. So just as a preface, I'm not an expert in this field. I'm not an authority, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not a nutritionist, and I'm not giving advice here. I'm just sharing, and it's not a lecture. It is a lecture, actually. And so everything I say, take it with a grain of salt. I may say something which is inaccurate. I might be scientifically outdated. So these are just some pointers I'm throwing out there for you to consider. Probably most of you already know, since you're all so health conscious, as I can see. And please feel free to join in anytime with questions. Okay, let's get started. Just some tips in general and some things which I've realized in my life and I live by, things that I do and I don't do when it comes to food, mainly around my body. So, a few things I had like a few minutes to prepare for this, so I just jotted down some bullet points. Table salt is very bad. So if you do Google on table salt, you will see that it has this emulsifier and this and that, which is very unhealthy. So it's better to eat, if you want to eat salt, it's better to have sea salt. Yesterday somebody said the best salt is a Celtic salt or Himalayan salt. I don't know, just good old sea salt would do. Enzymes are important, and your body has a reservoir of enzymes which only exist in raw food. So if somebody only eats cooked food all the time, they're not going to do very well health-wise. So it's important to eat enough raw foods so you replenish your enzyme bank, which helps digest food and break down proteins and so on.
What's in fruits?
Fruits, vegetables, all raw foods have enzyme. Essential fatty acids are very important, which come in nuts, avocados, things which are oily naturally. Flaxseed oil, raps oil, olive oil, and so on. I don't like fish oil. I don't take fish oil because I don't eat anything animalistic. But fish oil is another source. You don't really need it. You can get it through vegetarian sources. Meat is a whole subject by itself. I don't eat any meat. There are many reasons not to eat meat. There is environmental reasons, there's health reasons, there is moral reasons. And each one has their own subcategories. And I can talk for an hour on the subject, but just briefly, some bullet points. There are obviously some harms that the environmental cattle farming does. There's a lot of literature on that. You can look that up. For health, I think every doctor would tell you that it's healthier to not eat meat, especially red meat. One of the main reasons is that the intestines of a human is quite long. The carnivores have a very short intestine, and the meat stays in their system very short period. But in our system, it stays a long period. If you put a piece of meat outside the refrigerator, after a while it becomes absolutely disgusting, you know. But if you put an apple outside the refrigerator for a while, you know, it'll just stay good for a long time, and even then it decays with integrity, not with like meat, it stinks and stuff. Anyway, so the same thing happens in the body, in the intestines, and that's why in countries where they eat a lot of meat, there's a lot of cases of colon cancer, for example. Moral reasons. We're all killers, let's face it, guys. I killed a celery today with my own hands. But killing a cow or a goat or whatever is a bigger form of killing than killing a celery. So I think just like in criminal justice system, they have first degree murder, second degree murder. I think as murderers, we should try to commit as little murder and as little pain and suffering to our fellow creatures as possible. And that's one of the main reasons that I don't eat meat, because I don't have the heart to kill an animal myself. I've never seen it done. I've seen the after effects, like the blood in the street and so on, and the chicken running without a head, and so it's so disgusting. It's so bad, it's so wrong, it's so ugly. I don't have the heart to do it, and therefore I don't want to commission somebody else to go do it behind the scenes and then come and put a McDonald's face, happy face in the front. You know, the brutality that goes behind the scene is just not something that I want to support. And there's no such a thing as a compassionate killing. You know, there's a new fad of, oh, these animals are raised organically with kindness. Come on, sweetie, I want to cut your head off, you know. So I don't touch it. Anyway, there's also some psychosomatic reasons not to eat meat. For example, fear. I believe it's impossible to live without fear as long as a person consumes any kind of a meat. And the simple reason for it is because when the animal is getting killed, it feels it, it knows it. His buddy just got killed, now it's his turn. So he's scared shitless. Excuse my, not French. There's a lot of French-speaking people here. That's a bad American expression. Anyway, so those fear hormones and chemicals and so on and so forth, they all go into your body. And I experimented with this near-scientifically. So when I stopped eating meat, red meat, I was eating chicken and fish for a while. Then, but not every day, just like once a week or something. And every time I had chicken, in the middle of the night, and this was a period where I was starting to do yoga, I was more sensitive and so on. My brain was awake, I was afraid, okay? My brain would wake up and I was like, why am I afraid? I was looking really closely and I could see there was fear in my legs, in my body. And I had absolutely no reason to be afraid. I was not afraid of anything. So I concluded it was my body which was afraid. And why? What happened that day? The only thing that was different from other days was that I ate chicken. So I repeated this experiment several times, staying very objective about it, so I'm not fooling myself. And it was very clear to me. And with fish, once in a while I had fish when I was invited somewhere. I felt sorry, you know, shy about not eating it. And so every night I had fish, I had dream of this big fish getting stabbed. And then like 2 years later I had fish, same dream would come back, you know. So anyway, and it's disgusting, all the bones and the cartilages and so on. It's like, ugh. After a while you just lose this animalistic feeling. Okay, enough for the subject of meat. Now, but protein is important, and I think it's overplayed in the West especially. I was talking to some Indians last week, and they said they don't eat they don't eat any tofu, they don't eat a little bit of cheese. Mainly they eat rice and lentils every day. And
Yogurt.
Yogurt, exactly. So dairy products, yogurt, cheese, eggs, all of these things have protein. Soy products have protein. Greens have protein. Kale has a lot of protein. Many green leaves have protein, and rice and beans and grains and various legumes and different things. So there's a lot of sources of protein. Sugar is bad news. In fact, sugar is very important for us. The brain wouldn't function without sugar. Not the refined sugar, not the added sugar. Musical chairs. So I stay away from anything which has added sugar, and that includes high fructose corn syrup, evaporated cane juice. These are like polite words they put to fool the consumer. Oh, this is really not sugar. This is evaporated cane juice. So we go into the reasons why, but there are, as you're having more chocolate, which has sugar and caffeine, I will continue. Okay. So one tip is that I always read the labels of what I bought. My uncle told me when I first went to America as a kid, read the labels. It's very important. In Switzerland, about 10 years ago, they were lying on the labels. They were saying 100% orange juice, and then if you read the ingredients, it says orange juice and added sugar. So we're fooling the customer. Sugar is a big deal for the food industry because it's addictive and it's cheap. I worked for one of the world's largest food manufacturers. They were developing breakfast cereals which were 60% sugar. Why? Because the kids eat it, they get addicted to it. And it's cheap. You make a lot of profit, high profit margin. They don't care for you. The food industry doesn't care for the consumers. They just care for their pocket. And that's a fact. Okay. blood sugar fluctuations. When you eat added sugar, blood sugar up and down. Same thing with caffeine. So it's funny that I see these kids on the train eating M&Ms or very happy and joyful, and like 20 minutes later they're all like, you know. So if a person eats added sugar, I think also caffeine, they go through the day with up and down level of energy. You're really dragging it sometimes, and then you need another coffee to pick you up, or another chocolate, or whatever. And sometimes you're high and up. For me, from the moment I wake up till the moment I go to bed, my energy level is fairly stable. You know, I don't have these periods of dragging down or being extremely hyper, because I don't consume anything with added sugar, and I don't consume any stimulants, which include green tea, white tea, coffee, black tea, and so on. Energy drinks, oh my God. You see these kids taking energy drinks. So I tell them in the line, I say, why do you need an energy drink? You should, as a 12-year-old, you should be full of energy. You know? And you know what's inside it? Caffeine and sugar. So, also sugar depletes the cells from B vitamins. If you don't eat it for a while, you will see after you eat it that it has a bad aftertaste, has this bitter aftertaste. And also one of the things that I realized, you know, if you're consuming something all the time, you don't know its effect. You only know the effect after you stop it for a while, and then you take it, you will see how you feel. When I was taking sugar, after not taking it for 2-3 weeks, it's really funny, you get these energy shocks, I don't know how to call it. Like the whole world goes like this. I don't know how to explain, but if you don't eat it for a while, you'll know what I mean after you eat it. So, okay, Wi-Fi, I just put that in because somebody was asking about Wi-Fi. From a distance, I think it's okay. I mean, really not okay. I mean, what we're doing to the planet and to the birds and so on with all of this radiation which is flying around is not okay, probably. But Wi-Fi specifically, I think from a distance is fairly okay. I know, as a matter of fact, when I put the laptop on my lap and it's connected, I feel it. In my private parts especially. As soon as I switch it off, it goes away. It's really funny. So I believe it's harmful, just like cell phones. I hate talking on cell phones. I feel it because it's microwave. It just speeds up your brain. And the phone industry, they sponsor studies to tell you cell phones are absolutely safe. An Italian court recently linked somebody or somebody's brain tumors to cell phones, and so this was a very important landmark. So I know from my own life that cell phones speed up the brain cells, and I just really feel awful afterwards. And I had friends who died from brain cancer tumors who were very heavy phone users. So I use it sometimes because I have to, but I have a speaker and I put it on the table, speak from a distance. Even that's not really enough because they say it should be like 4 or 5 meters, but it's better than it being here. Caffeine, chocolate, energy drink, black, green, white tea, we talked about that already. Caffeine causes stress. So this process of body breaking down caffeine causes stress. That's why it impacts sleep. And for most people, I think there's a few people, I've heard that when the kids are really hyper, they also give them caffeine because it calms them down. But I'm not sure. But for me, I know in my own life, I used to drink coffee. It was horrible, absolutely horrible, because I would like shake and be nervous and be hyper. And when I stopped it, it was so much better. But also industry, businesses, they like coffee because when they give you free coffee and you work faster, you work more, you're more productive. And people like, and these drugs, there's different categories of drugs. There's stimulants, depressants, and hallucinogenics. Stimulants are things like coffee. Depressants are alcohol, and for example, Valium and things like this. And hallucinogenics are LSD and marijuana and other things. So these drugs, the stimulants and the depressants work against each other. So if you drink a lot of coffee, you will want to drink alcohol because you all stimulated yourself, and having a glass of wine or beer or something helps calms you down. And at least this is what I've seen in people around me. And cigarettes is a whole subject by itself, but nicotine works against both of those. Against stimulant, when you drink coffee, you like to smoke because it works as a depressant against a stimulant and also against alcohol. So cigarette is a big topic. Let's talk about cigarettes for a minute. Just very brief summary. I wrote some things and stuff. If you go to my website rezatv.com, you will see some videos I made on rezamusic, some articles about smoking and various things. 95% of people who want to stop smoking don't do it or can't do it. So imagine, out of 100 smokers who want to stop, 95 of them are spending money on something they know it's bad for them, they know it makes them stink, they know it will eventually kill them, and they can't stop. Can you imagine living in a conflict? We have an example here, and she already told me she's in conflict about it. And yeah, the government doesn't care in a way and they let, especially in this country, some governments care a lot. Here they don't care that much, because here they allow the cigarette industry, who pays big lobbying dollars and so on, francs maybe, to put these billboards of good life, you know, and they have very smart psychologists. On these cigarette ads you see things like, why say maybe? Because they know that smokers are in conflict and are asking themselves, am I going to be so stupid to go buy a pack of cigarettes? Maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. So it says, why say maybe? Anyway, so what I found out to be very helpful for stopping smoking is that to understand dependence. And this is something, if you read works by J. Krishnamurti, he'll be very helpful, because he goes into this so beautifully. So dependence, he talks about psychological dependence. He also throws challenges. He says, is it possible to be free from any dependence, chemically, psychologically, emotionally, intellectually? You know, this is a great challenge. You know? So the main thing with tobacco, with nicotine, is the physical dependence, where the central nervous system gets addicted to the nicotine, and when you drink coffee and beer and so on, it makes it even more difficult. But it's the easy part. If you don't smoke for 3 days, it'll go out of your system. What people have more difficulty with is the psychological dependence. And this really, the key to psychological change and freedom is awareness, understanding, seeing what you are, and not fighting it. Because if you fight what is, then you get weaker because it gets stronger. Because you lose energy in the friction between what is and what should be. Anyway, I've written about this a lot. You can check my website. Okay, and what else? Cooking. I learned this in South Africa, that you can fry with a little bit of water instead of oil. There's a doctor friend of mine, Paco, who is sometimes a doctor. He said he thinks that frying oil should become illegal. It is so harmful. So I never fry or deep fry oil. I always use a little bit of water if I need to fry, or mainly just boil and steam. Also, it's not good to cook things too much. You already know that. A little bit is better than a lot. What else? Alcohol kills brain cells. Alcohol is highly addictive. Not recommended. What else?
It's a dangerous world.
It's true. You can get killed by a car too, right? But to get killed by smoking, for example, is a slow, painful death. I knew people, friends actually, who died from smoking, and it's very, very ugly. And the sad part is they're taking them to the hospital bed, and they're still smoking. This is how addictive it is. Okay, so almost done. Food combination. We were talking about this at lunch. I found food combination to be very important. It's a big topic, but just in 2 minutes. I try not to combine carbohydrates with proteins. So I don't eat bread with cheese. This morning we went on a long walk. I ate my egg and my cheese early on, and then I had the bread later on. If I didn't mix them, I would probably feel it in my hands, because it creates inflammation, because it takes a higher acidity to digest protein than carbohydrates, and when you eat them together, the carbs don't get digested fully, and it creates alcohol in the system because of the fermentation, which causes inflammation. And inflammation is a cause of many, many things. I've had plenty of problem with this. I learned this the hard way. So basically the rule of thumb is that you can mix vegetables with anything. You can mix just keep proteins together or with vegetables, carbs with vegetables, and not mixing carbs with proteins. That's a general rule of thumb. But it's not an absolute thing. It depends on your upbringing and genetics and lots of things. That's it. I take some supplements. I take a multivitamin and other things which I've listed on my website. Not religiously, but just sometimes. And lastly, just for the audience, I want to tell you about today the biggest health issue which faces the world. Anybody wants to guess what it is? Obesity. Being overweight. In America, 2/3 of people are overweight, 1/3 are obese. In China, you name it, everywhere. It's a pandemic, which means a global problem. In America, it's an epidemic. In the UK, it's an epidemic. And the problem is that when the body gets so big, it becomes very difficult for it to lose weight. So I want to tell you about a product. Generally, I don't take medications. I try to find natural alternatives. But of course, if I'm really sick, I go to the doctor, he gives me medicine, I take it. So I'm not against medications. And one medication which was recently hit the market in the US, since we were talking about this the other day, I want to tell you about it. It's called Belviq, belviq.com is the website. It has a really good safety profile, and what it does is that it triggers in the hypothalamus, which is the area of the brain which we share with all the animals, a receptor, a serotonin receptor, 5-HT2C, which basically gives a person a feeling of being full. Now I know I have friends who are taking this, and they've lost a lot of weight fairly quickly by just eating less. But for a person who's not taking it, it's very difficult to eat less because of appetite. And when that appetite comes, forget it. They're gonna eat, you know. But so this pill helps them cut down on the appetite, and it's working really, really good. Any questions?
What you said, we cannot mix
Proteins with
carb.
carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are starches like bread, pasta, potato,
And rice?
rice.
You cannot mix rice with vegetable.
Yes, you can. With vegetables, you can mix everything because vegetables are neutral.
Vegetable, you can mix anything.
Yes.
All right.
Well, I wouldn't eat bananas with vegetables. Fruits are acid fruits, sub-acid fruits, and sweet fruits. I think it's better to not mix like acidic fruit with sweet fruit. And so to keep that table up on the upper row, and then think of it as a lower row, proteins, vegetables, and carbohydrates. So you can eat everything with vegetables, but I don't eat fruits with vegetables usually. But if I do, it's okay.
And you said acid fruits are...
Like oranges, kiwi, and things like this.
All right.
So it's better not to eat kiwi with banana, because you help your body with, with the digestion if you don't do that. But with proteins, I don't know, you probably know that there are 8 essential amino acids. So some foods have all of these essential amino acids, like tofu, for example. Some don't have it, like lentils have it. Some of them, rice have some of them. When you mix them, then you get all of the proteins.
And
I think if a person eats dairy products, then it becomes very easy. But to be a vegan, which doesn't make sense to me, is more difficult. Well, many things cause inflammation. I think all the animal products cause acidity of the system. So in general, it's good to keep, because the blood pH is alkaline, and when you eat any food you eat leaves the acidic or basic alkaline residue on the blood. So it's helpful for the body if you eat more alkaline food.
cause it...
No, the combination. If you eat carbohydrates with proteins, it causes inflammation. It causes fermentation of the carbohydrates and not proper digestion, and that causes inflammation. And especially areas like hands where you have a lot of small veins. This inflammation causes stiffness, and I went through all this. It's good to do colon irrigation or enema sometimes. And also, great thing I discovered thanks to Victoria Butanko of www.rawfamily.com. She's the queen of green smoothies. she started this whole green smoothie movement, which is amazing. Because we really should eat a lot of greens, green leaves. So what she does, she puts green leaves in the blender with fruits, and she drinks it, and it cures diseases. It's fantastic, because greens have so many good things in them, and we don't consume enough greens in our daily lives.
For 1 week you don't eat?
Yeah, you can. Well, I don't like extreme fasts, but yeah, you can do that, or even one day. Our friend was saying it's good to skip every 7 meals, for example, to give system a break. I was talking about enema. You know what that is? French. Or you can.
Oh, yeah.
Or you can have somebody do it for you, which is called colon irrigation.
Yeah, right.
With a machine.
Exactly, well, I know that.
It's great.
But also, because for 1 week I did some nothing to eat, just
Fast. Good for you. I couldn't do that, or I don't want to do it. I like my muscles. Very much.
Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you, Reza.
Very interesting.
Resourcefulness.
I mean, to your previous point about killing to sustain dairy products, if you're a farmer yourself, like in the old ancient days where the Aryans moved into the Caspian Sea area, and their cattle was their property and their resources, and they were vegetarians. They wouldn't kill the animals because the animals would give them milk and so on. So I don't think you need to kill in order to get the milk and cheese and so on.
No.
So, but personally, I don't eat too much dairy products. But I don't think I would never go vegan because I love cheese, for example. I try to eat raw cheese, which is made from raw milk, and with vegetarian enzymes. Rennet, I think it's called. In German, it's called Lab. I love yogurt. Yogurt is very healthy. You know, it's got a lot of good bacteria and so on. I like eggs. I don't eat too much, but so I think to be vegan is a bit extreme for me personally. For somebody else might be good.
And what do you think of soya products?
Soya products, I mean, I only eat it if it's definitely organic and from a good source. And I like tofu. My body likes it. I don't eat too much of it because it has estrogen too, which affects the testosterone for men, and for women too much of it is not good. So it's better to eat fermented soya, which is tempeh, instead of tofu. But I do eat tofu regularly, like every other day or something. I don't have a problem with it. And testosterone, I don't have a problem. I exercise and stuff. Well, here I'm just sharing how I live, and for me it's easier now. When I started like this, when you go shopping, you have to really think, what should I buy? What can I eat and what can I not eat? But after a while, you know, your just brain knows it. You walk into a supermarket, you know what you can buy and not buy. Easy, you know. So you have to take science with a grain of salt. As you say, you have to see what works for you.
Sea salt.
Like I try to buy organic products.
Yeah, I think
whenever
that's
I
definitely a good choice.
Yeah, like for example that. I don't think you can find many scientists who can argue that no, organic products, because they've tested and they know they have less pesticides and herbicides.
But sadly, again, you know, organic food is another industry, and there is so many hoaxes. Again, like in Austria, a guy he wrote a book about it, the organic hoax it was called.
Sure.
And he visited the production sites, and they were, for example, for butter or for milk, and they were just putting the same product into a different package, and that's all that happened. And so what I am trying to do is to take part in so-called food cooperations, if you have heard of that.
Sure. Yeah, ship is supposed to be easier to get.
What do you think about coconut products?
I think it's good, but nowadays I see like a movement, a commercial movement. But coconut is good, sure.
I think so too, health-wise. But if I think about the transport, that you know, like coconuts do not grow in some area, and also there are these huge plantations. I have a slight bad feeling
Mixed
about
feeling,
it,
right?
even though I like it. But
Doesn't it have a lot of cholesterol, coconut?
Really? Because I thought
I didn't mind
cholesterol is
something I need
only in animal products.
Or some kind of something, like some kind of fat,
Unhealthy,
isn't it?
some-
Yeah.
I know.
Or saturated.
Yeah, if you don't eat meat, you have no problem with cholesterol usually. And talking about vegetarianism, there's this philosopher friend, J. Krishnamurti. He didn't eat meat, but they said, "Are you vegetarian?" He says, "No, I'm not vegetarian," because vegetarian can become another thing like vegetarianism, communism. You know.
Mm.
But he also said he's never eaten meat. He doesn't even know the taste of meat, but he wears leather shoes.
Right. Practicality, right? I know the taste of meat, and when I was 18, I stopped eating red meat. I thought I'd try it. In yoga class I took, they were vegetarians. So I didn't eat meat for 1 month. And then I had red meat, and that's when I could taste that bloody iron taste, you know, the irony blood taste. And it was a complete turn off, you know.
But you do need
And
iron.
I
don't
didn't touch it anymore. Yeah, well, men need a lot less iron than women. So, for example, because we don't lose blood, you see. So the
okay.
multivitamins that I take are for men, which actually have less iron, because too much iron is also not good.
Mm.
The
And what is-
difficulty also is about the digestion,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes you can, if your digestion, the combination in your body is for each one different to the other. So sometimes you can take certain things, but the body will not take them.
Mm-hmm. What I find is most helpful with digestion is not to mix proteins with carbohydrates. And also if my enzyme bank is not depleted, if I'm eating enough raw food, then digestion is much easier. I also take enzyme pills, all natural, just to supplement sometimes. I take a whole tray of different things just for fun. Well, for fun, not for fun.
If you get raw milk, I'm not sure how it is with you in America. I heard it's really hard. What you can do is that you let it sour, the milk, and you pour out the whey, and you just take a sip of whey, or you add a spoonful of whey to your vegetables. It has really good digestive enzymes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, whey is quite good. They also make whey protein powders.
Yeah. Mm.
Rivella.
Rivella,
Is
that's
with
right.
Whey, but also sugar.
Is in German, is the Molke, is that whey? Milk?
Morka.
Okay.
What you said about red meat,
Mm-hmm.
a cow needs about 200 liters water per day, and to produce a steak it takes about 600 liter water, just one steak.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And
Also-
4 grasshoppers equals 1 steak.
4 grasshoppers.
4 grasshoppers. You can eat
Equal
them.
what?
If you eat 4 grasshoppers,
Really?
four grasshoppers like that, I'm telling you, and it's very good. 4 like this, and it equals, and it's even more proteins, more vitamins, more everything, than one piece of meat, one steak.
Tomorrow.
So there are many
I
grasshoppers
prefer your
here.
mushrooms. I prefer your mushrooms.
There was another statistic that I forgot, but it takes like 100 kilo of grain to get 10 kilo of meat. And imagine how many people you can feed with 100 kilo of grain.
Sure. And who takes the legs out? Or you eat everything?
Oh, you eat everything like this.
Uh-huh.
You can powder them.
Ah.
You after drying, you
Sprinkle
can
it on.
powder them.
Oh, you can powder them, yeah.
Yeah.
I saw a crab once get cut in half, put in hot water and cut in half. It was still alive. The hands were still moving. Horrible. And I was in Iceland, out of all places. I mean, in some Arabic countries in Middle East, they eat sheep head. But in Iceland, in the airport, I went to the breakfast buffet, and they had sheep head with the eyes. And they're like, yeah, we also eat the eyes.
At least they don't throw it away, they eat everything.
Oh gosh.
Monkey brain in Southeast. They eat monkey brain in China. I know.
It's a delicatessen.
I think in Japan or somewhere. My friend went to a restaurant, and they bring a live monkey and cut its head.
Yeah.
What cruelty! But I mean, killing cows and stuff is not much nicer either. It's horrible.
No, but the monkey is alive and you eat the brain.
Oh, quelle horreur!
Yeah.
Alive! Oh,
It's
poor
alive.
little thing.
The cow is also alive when you're cutting its throat. You know. It's
Anyway,
not
let's because the law of attraction says that if we remain on this subject, it's going to turn our stomachs.
So let's do a positive subject.
Let's find a positive subject.
But what if the law of attraction is false?
Well, it may not be. Just like for
Yeah.
one evening, let's experiment.
Okay. Or maybe this, let's say not 100% false, but it's become totally commercialized by pop psychology. And you know, anyway, that's another subject.
Sleeping well.
You know, some years ago we were here in the same room with some people and we were talking about the secret of happiness. So the idea was we go around the room, each person says, what's the secret of happiness? And Giselle's turn came and she said, a good night's sleep. And that is a very wise and true.
That is
You
a
remember
good
that?
night, a good sleep.
Good sleep, yeah.
And one day I opened, you know, what is the Giselle ballet, you know?
Do you sing one in your language, Ariane?
Pardon?
The last song in your language?
Oh, you want something in Persian? Sure.
Oh, yeah.